Hello and welcome to another GameMaker Studio 2 tutorial. Today we're going to be creating an endless runner. We're not going to jump or anything, we're just going to move from side to side, and we're going to have some asteroids come in at us and things like that. For the purpose of today, I've already made the sprites. These sprites will be available for you guys to create your games as well. So without any further ado, let's get stuck right into it. So the first thing I need to do is to create my project. So I clicked new and then drag and drop. I'm going to put it straight into my desktop, into my GameMaker Studio 2 folder, and I'm going to call this endless, and then just hit save there. So now I have my project set up, and the first thing I really want to do when I go in here is to set the dimensions of the game room out. So I'm going to go to my game room and I'm going to make sure that I change the width and the height here. So for this game that we're going to make today, I'm going to make the width at 640 and the height at 480. So we've got a fairly small room here. It doesn't matter too much, but the sprites that I've made are going to fit perfectly into this room. Okay. So I need to start getting my sprites in now, and to do that I'm going to right click in here, create, and head down to sprite, and then I'm just going to import these from my desktop in my sprites folder. So I'm going to be using this sprite here, which is a spaceship I made a while back. I don't really like the scale of that. I'm going to just probably put this down to 64. And then let's have a look at that. It's not very nice, it's not come out very nice, but it will do for today. And then I'm just going to hit middle center on our origin point, and then I'm going to name it SPR_player. What this player is going to do is it is just going to move from left to right. All you're going to be doing in this endless runner is avoiding asteroids that are coming at us. You can add more objects, since maybe some other power-ups later down the line, which will come in different tutorials, but for today's session this is what we're going to work towards. We're just going to have a run-of-the-mill endless runner, just avoiding asteroids. So I made this sprite. I'm also going to bring in a sprite that I didn't make. I just found this one on Google, which is quite nice. So I'm going to create sprite. I'm going to import from my sprites folder. I'm just going to get this asteroid here, which is nice. It's fairly big, so I'm probably going to put this down to about 80. It's going to be bigger than the spaceship, because otherwise, if it's not bigger than the spaceship, how's it going to destroy it? Right, so I'm going to middle center that as well. And that's all I need for now. So I'm going to, oh, in fact, I need to name it SPR_asteroid. Lovely. So I can close that now. There is probably 2 more sprites that I need. So I'm going to create sprite. This one's going to be SPR_start, because this is going to be our start screen. I'm going to import it again. I've called this game Don't Bottle It, because if you do bottle it, you lose. And I don't really need to do anything else with this image. Cool. So I'm going to close that and create one more sprite. This one I'm just going to call SPR_box, and then this time, instead of importing an image, I'm just going to edit this image. I'm going to pick red and just block it out red, because this is what we're going to use as our collisions for things moving towards us. Lovely. We don't need to middle center that either, that can stay in top left, the origin point can. And then we're ready to start creating our objects. Alright, so I'm going to just minimize the sprites folder now, and I'm going to head over to my objects folder, and I'm going to start by creating my player object. So if I call this obj_player, and then I'm going to select my player sprite. There are only 2 events that I want in here, and that is going to be a key down left and a key down right. these are all we're going to need in this game, and there's just one action in both, and if you've been doing in the sessions with me before, you might know that it would be a jumped point. We're going to keep the X spare. We're going to click relative on both of those. When we're going left, we want this to be -5. Oh no, this is the key down right event, so we're going to be going +5, and then if we go to our key down left, go to our recently used, and then we can hit -5 on the Y axis. Sorry, this is all in the X. Awesome. So that looks like it'll work now. So just to kind of check on this working, I'm going to head to my room. I am going to call this game room because we are going to change between rooms. So our game, so room game, there we go. There are a few things that I want to do in here. So first thing I'm going to do is bring our player sprite into here, nice and central and towards the bottom of the screen. Then I'm just going to go to the background. I'm going to make it look a bit more going to make it look a little bit more space-like. I know space is generally black, but you don't want a boring black background, do you? So we're going to change the colour of this to a fairly dark purpley violet kind of colour. It's going to be very dark, and then we're going to hit OK, and then we should have something a little bit more like this now. Awesome. So I'm going to check if those if that movement's working, and then we'll move on. So yeah, nice and easy, that movement. Lovely. Okay, so I can go to the workspace again now, and I can close this object, because we're going to start creating another object now, which is just going to be our object box. So if I put that sprite box on there and call this obj_box, then I can set it to solid, and I'm going to drag this into the room, not on the background. I want to make sure we're on this instances layer, and I'm going to drag this off screen, and then I'm going to make sure that I have it larger, well, just off of the screen, and a little bit larger than the game room in terms of width. Awesome. That's all I need for the object box. I don't need any code in here, because this is solely just to monitor collisions with maybe a star or something like that. In fact, that is one sprite that I've forgotten about, the sprite for stars. So I'm going to create another sprite. I'm going to call it SBR_star, and then I'm probably going to make this very quite small. So let's just middle center this, edit this, and probably something about this size. Try and get it as central as possible. 32 by 32 there. Awesome. So if I close that now, it's a little bit off. I want to change that. Let's just erase that then. Oops, wrong button. Click on that. Let's go to 31 or 30 by 30. That doesn't look quite right. 31 by 31, I think. And then let's have a look at that one. It's a bit better. It's not really, but it will do. Okay, so we're going to close that, and then we are going to create another room now. So we've got all of our sprites in here. You can't even see that sprite star, so we'll close that. I do want to create in fact, let's do the room at the end. So let's create another object. So this one is going to be our object star. So obj_star, and then we're going to make sure we select our star sprite, which is just a nice little dot there, and then we are going to add a step event. So what the step event does is it allows us to to have something running over every frame of the game. As you know, we have 60 frames in a second, so during each frame we want to be doing a certain function. For the stars, all they're there to do is to make it look a little bit nicer. So we are going to go into our step event and we're going to add a jump to point. We're not going to have anything on the X, we're going to make sure both of these are relative, and we're going to have 2 in the Y axis. Okay, the other event that we want on this object star is a collision event. So we're going to collide with our object box. And again, we are going to have a jump to point. We're going to have minus 64 on the Y, and then we are going to have a bit of a term in the in GameMaker language now. So we're going to use a variable or a couple of variables called random range. So random underscore range. What this does is it allows us to have 2 different values for our X axis and our Y axis. So on the X axis we want to have a random range of 640 because that is the width of our game room, and then on the Y we just want 0, and then we can continue on. Awesome. So that's all we really want in here. So we can test this out by going to our room game. I'm going to put some of these stars in, and then I'm going to just litter this entire area really with these stars, just in random places, probably not on the same kind of area, but we'll kind of get there. Not on the same row at least, because we want them to be in random places. We could have also made another layer, instances layer for these stars, but it doesn't matter all that much. That should kind of do for now then. Let's test that out. So we have our movement. Okay. So that's not working. That might just be because we've not hit solid here. Let's try that again. Or we might not have hit precise on the collisions. Yeah, so it's the collisions. So if we go to our SBR box, let's create a collision mask here, make it precise, and then go to our star and do the same. So if these are both precise, then this should now work. Yeah, so now they're coming in at random places in here. So the only issue here is that we get a bit of a blank area. That's just because in our game room there's a bit of space at the bottom here and a bit of time before anything gets there, so we probably want to have an object start there and potentially an object start on this row as well. So I'm just going to run that again and make sure that looks okay, which it does, and these are just going to go in a random place on the x-axis 64 frames above here. With that, actually I'll just pop one up as well. Beautiful. Okay, so that's our stars done. Let's go back into our objects and we want to this time create the asteroid. So I'm going to create object, going to name it obj_asteroid, and actually let's make sure we have solid selected, select our asteroid sprite, and I'm just going to make sure that this has a precise collision mask. Beautiful. Okay, so we've got that now. So this is going to have 3 different events, one to get it to move, one to get it to collide with the object box, and one for it to collide with the object ship. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is the step event. So just like before, we want this to be running over every frame of this game. So what we want in here is we want a jump to point, So again, just like before, we're going to have random underscore, oh no, we want 0 here. We want both of these to be relative, and we probably want this moving at a fairly decent pace, probably just as fast as our player can. So we'll have it at 5 pixels per second moving in the y-axis. Beautiful. And then I want to set the instance rotation. So I want this to be continuously rotating, and I have a function here, or an action in the instances actions tab, and I'm just going to drag that in. And what I want this to be is probably 4. I want it to rotate 4 pixels every step, and then I want to hit relative here. We can also check how that works. We haven't got a great deal happening with the asteroid yet, but I do just want to make sure that this is working. I'm going to drag 3 or 4 of these in, maybe 1 off screen as well, just to kind of make sure that they are coming in. And then I'm going to hit play and see how this works. So they are rotating at a decent speed, which is fine. At the moment we haven't got it colliding with our object box, which is what we're about to do now. So we're going to go back to our object asteroid by double clicking on it on the right hand side, and we are going to add a collision event. This collision event is going to be with the object box, and this is going to say something very similar to what the stars said in when they collided. So we're going to have a jump to point. In here we're going to have that little bit of script called random underscore range, and then we want it to be 640 on the x-axis. And just as a heads up, the x-axis will always come before the y-axis, and then we want 0 on the y-axis, because we want to set the y-axis in our in the y-axis instead. So here I'm probably going to have it at -256. This is just a random number building up in the amount of pixels that a sprite would be, just to kind of give a bit of time before it enters back into the screen and give the player a little bit of extra time there. And then we want another collision event, this time with our object player, and all we want in here is a restart game function. Awesome. So we can now test this out and see if this works, which it should. Beautiful. Yeah, they're coming in random places every time, which is nice. But we don't just want a game where we can just do this. We want to know how long we've lasted and whether or not we've succeeded in or beaten our friends. So the object that I'm going to create now is called an object game. What this object game is going to do is it's going to hold all the information, so from room to room, and it's going to allow us to hold the score that we get and build on that every frame. Okay, so first thing I want to do is to create a new room. So I'm going to create a room. I'm going to make sure it's 640 by 480 again. And this time I'm going to go to background and I'm going to set a sprite. This sprite being the SBR_start. Awesome. I'm also going to make sure that I name this room as well. So I'm going to rename it to RM_start. And then what I can do is I can click this button here. So there's 2 boxes with a double-sided arrow on it. And then I can drag that RM_start in front of the RM_game, and that's just the room order in which so when we start up the game it will come to this RM_start. So if I play it, we won't be able to do anything yet, but you'll see that it will come to this screen, and we can't do anything. No matter what we press, we can't start that game. So we need to start adding a bit of scripting in. So I'm just going to create this object now. We don't need a sprite for this object. We want it to be persistent, and then we want to start adding some events. In fact, before we start adding some events, I want to go to that RM start. I just want to drag that onto our instances layer, just in the top left corner, nice and tidily out of the way. and then I can double click on this object and go back to it. So this is going to be obj_game with no sprite, and it's going to have persistent selected on it. And now we can start adding the events. So the first event that I want in here is a create event. So on the creation of this, we want to start a timer going to an alarm, really. So we're going to set the alarm countdown to 60. So we want it to count every second, and then we want to go, I think that's all we want in here actually. Yes, that is all we want in this event here. So we now want an alarm event. So our alarm event is going to set the score. So if we type into here set score, and then scroll down a bit till we find the set score. That didn't seem to do much in terms of making this any smaller, but that's fine. So we're going to set the score to 0. Oh, in fact, we're going to set it to 1 and make sure that's counting up from the initial score. And then we are going to set the alarm countdown again. So another 60 frames. So every 60 frames, this score is going to go up. So every second, the score is going to go up by 1 point. Great. So this is going to give us the amount of time that we have survived for. Awesome. So we want to also see how that kind of comes into play. We want to see this happen. So we want to add a draw event. The draw event that we want is a draw GUI because we want it as a heads-up display or a user interface. We want to be able to see this happening in front of us and ticking up every second. Great. So in here we need to say that we need a switch. So we need to type in switch into here, and then we get these actions here. So we want to drag the switch and the case in here, but we want to make sure that this case is working off the right hand side. So just like the if variable actions, we're going to use that same function here. We want the switch to say room because that's the constant that we're looking at. Well, the value of rooms, and then the constant that we want to be in when we're drawing this is the rm_game. So when we're in the game room now, we want to have a couple of functions happen. So we want to set the score to 0, and we want to draw the score. In fact, we don't want to set the score to 0 in here. We just want to draw the score. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw instant score. We probably want to set the draw color as well. I'm just going to set that to white and then put that above there. And instead of score in here, I'm going to call this time survived. Lovely. I'm going to have it 10 pixels from the top on there, and we have 640 on the width. So I'm going to set that to 320, so it's halfway across. And because I've got it nicely in the middle at the top, I'm also going to just align the text a little bit. So underneath that set draw color, I'm going to make sure that I have, sorry, that's get text alignment. I want set text alignment. That's font. There it is. And we want to have a horizontal alignment of center and a vertical alignment of middle. So when we bring this into the game room now, or when we start playing the game, this will tick down center of the screen at the top. Lovely. So there is just one more event that we want on here, and that is a key pressed event. So we want to add this key pressed. I did set it to E, but we could also set it to any, but for the purpose of today I'm just going to go letters and E because that's what I've put on the SPR_start screen. So in here, just like before, I want the switch actions available to me. So I want to have the value of room on our switch, and then I want to have a constant. So I want to add a constant to this case now. So I dragged in the case, and now I'm going to add the constant of rm_start. So now what I'm saying is, in the case that I am in the room_start and I press E, then I want to go to next room. So you can specify room if you've got multiple, but we only have 2. So I'm going to go to next room, and then I'm going to set the score to 0. And again, it's going to take a little bit of finding. There it is. And then I am set, really. So if I press F5 now, so this should now move me into the game room, which it does, and it's now ticking up the amount of time that I survived, nice and center in the middle. I can also change the size of that of that score counting up by going to, if I just type in draw here, I can also change the color of it and stuff like that, so it's not as bright. But I could also create a font and set it to that font depending on the size that I want it. But because it's a fairly small windowed game, I'll probably keep it at that size. So now I have a functioning endless runner. You guys can put probably a bit more in it than this. This is just to kind of show you, and I would like to probably see more than one object flying through this game. So you've got the player, and then you've got the asteroids and a few collidable objects. Lovely. So that is going to take us to the end of this tutorial. I hope you've managed to create this game, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.